Hello, this is Black Libertarian. I'm black, and I'm a libertarian. The purpose of this video is to tell you what libertarianism is. There's a lot of different types of libertarians out there. There's left-leaning libertarians, there's right-leaning libertarians, and then there's also voluntarists, like me, who are exactly in the middle. But I think what you can do is you can take all of those different types of libertarians, you could say, and you could take the core foundational principles and boil them down and distill 3 basic principles. The first, #1 basic principle of libertarianism, foundational, is the non-aggression principle, NAP. Sometimes some libertarians call it the zero aggression principle, and some of them simply call it the non-initiation of force. However you want to call it, it's all the same. Basically, what this says is that the initiation of violence or force is necessarily immoral. What this means is that we're taking the use of physical force, general force, and we're dividing it up into different categories. One category is called initiatory force, and the other one is retaliatory force. So as an example, the scene from Spider-Man when Mary Jane is walking down the dark alley, and all of a sudden a hoodlum jumps out of the shadows and with a knife, and he tries to rape her, right? And then she kicks the guy, and then she tries to run away, right? So in that scene, this is a perfect example of initiatory force. The guy with the knife is using initiatory force, and his actions are necessarily immoral. But if Mary Jane were to kick the guy and try to run away, her use of force would be retaliatory force, where it's not necessarily immoral. Now remember that this also includes threats of violence or force. So nobody actually necessarily needs to get physically injured in order for force to happen. If I walk up to you and point a gun at you and threaten to shoot you, I am using initiatory force. We don't have to wait until I blow your brains out in order to use the word force to describe what I'm doing. So that's the first principle, the non-initiation of force. The second principle is property rights. Everyone has the right to own property. Now, of course, we have to define the word ownership. Ownership is the exclusive decision-making rights. That means who gets to decide how a particular thing is going to be used. The answer to that question is the owner. Now, of course, a property can have as many owners as you want. So basically what you're doing is you are drawing a circle, and anyone inside of the circle gets the right to make decisions regarding that thing, and anyone who's not inside of that circle does not have the right to make decisions. So, for example, we own our bodies. If somebody wants to put a tattoo on me, they would have to get my permission first, because I have exclusive right to decide whether or not a tattoo goes on here. And nobody else has that right. So if somebody wants to ask permission, they have to ask my permission and nobody else. They can't just ask, the person across the street, hey, is it okay if we put a tattoo on that guy? And they say, okay, and now all of a sudden I have to get a tattoo. That's not how it works. So that's the second principle, property rights. Everyone has the right to do whatever they want with their property as long as they don't use any portion of their property to initiate force against anyone. And this brings us to our third principle, which is the freedom of association. Everyone has the right to freedom of association. Basically what this means is that everyone has the right to enter into or not enter into any consensual relationship that they want. This could be a business relationship, it could be a romantic relationship, it can be any other type of relationship you can think of. People can choose to enter the relationship or choose to not enter a relationship. People can choose to interact or not interact. If somebody wants to live on their own in the woods and be a hermit, they have the right to do that. They have the right to interact with or not interact with anyone they want, as long as they don't initiate force against anybody. As long as nobody's initiating force against anybody, everyone has the right to enter or leave or not even involve themselves with whatever consensual relationship they want. So those are the three basic principles of libertarianism: the non-initiation of force, the respect for private property rights, and the freedom of association. Basically, no matter what type of libertarian a person is, left-leaning, or maybe a little bit right-leaning, or maybe even a little bit in the middle, all of them are going to basically share these three basic principles, and they may have other beliefs as well, but for the most part, they will all share these three basic principles: that initiating force is immoral, that everyone has the right to own property, and everyone has the right to own themselves, self-ownership, and of course, everyone has the right to freely associate, voluntarily associate with each other, as long as nobody is initiating force in order to force people to associate or to prevent people from associating. Everyone has all three of those rights. And if you agree with those three principles, then I guess that makes you a libertarian too. So, thank you very much for watching. That is the end of the video. If you agree or if you disagree with any of these, maybe you think that people should initiate force against each other as much as they want, and it would be just fine. Or maybe you think that people really don't have the right to own property. Or maybe you think that everyone shouldn't have the right to freely associate. Or maybe just some people should have the right to freely associate. Whatever it is, let me know down below in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.